Hello, I am back for another video. First, quick disclaimer. Eventually I'm going to have these written out probably on the screen somewhere, but for now I'm just doing it verbally, so bear with me. I am spreading some information for educational purposes only. I am not a legal expert by any means, so I'm not getting any legal advice. So if you need any expert legal advice, please consult a legal professional. And if you want to get support, emotional support, then please find a mental health professional, specifically someone who understands the narcissistic dynamic and understands what narcissistic abuse is. Now that I've got that out of the way, today I know I've been sort of leading towards this. I want to talk about the types of narcissists because I feel like this is kind of the base for everything else that I talk about. So you want to bear with me for a minute because I want to sort of read off whoops, I lost it here. So today I'm going to talk about probably what people think most about when they hear narcissist is what's known as the malignant narcissist. That's the one they're very overt, which means it's out there. They're generally show their traits. They're not really hiding it much. They're the ones, kind of more grandiose. So when people think of narcissist, that's kind of the more obvious one that people consider. There are some well-known people out there, a particular orange man in particular, who kind of embodies that trait. Malignant narcissism is not a clinical term, so we're not saying necessarily narcissistic personality disorder, but certainly, if that person took the tests and the assessments, it wouldn't be surprised if that's what came up. But we're not saying they necessarily have NPD. So it's not, just like psychopath and sociopath are not clinical terms. We're just using it, again, as a cluster of traits. So some of the main signs and traits of malignant narcissism, and bear with me here because I'm going to put on my reading glasses and I'm going to read this. So these include, and by no means this is an exhaustive list, this is just really some of the main ones that stand out. So lack of empathy, which is all narcissists. Using relationships primarily as a tool for gaining self-esteem. Having little interest in others' experiences, needs, or feelings. Attention-seeking behavior. Feelings of entitlement or being special. Believing themselves to be superior to others. Disregard for or hostility toward the rights of others. Aggression and violence. Lack of remorse for harming others, a tendency to lie, breaking the law, chronic irresponsibility, impulsive or reckless behavior. Now, one thing it does say is a person with malignant narcissism may appear superficially charming. They may manipulate people to gain praise or lie about others to depict themselves in a more flattering light. So they're not always charming. Sometimes they're really unpleasant. Other times they can hide behind a bit of a charming facade. So one of the things that I'm getting this from sort of a medical site. So, these are things that I understand and know, but sometimes it's easier to just read more of a summary so it can be very clear about what we're dealing with here. So it talks about malignant narcissism versus classical presentations of narcissism. So it says people with narcissistic personality crave attention and acclaim. They believe they are special and want others to believe this too. They seek the attention they want through positive strategies such as getting a good job, being charming, or negative ones, that's an important one, such as lying to others or abusing loved ones. The need for attention and love is also present in people with malignant narcissism. So the thing I read at the beginning is more just classical narcissism, which generally applies to most narcissists, and then the malignant is kind of where we're getting into the more dangerous kind of territory, because it says here, however, their strategies for getting this attention tend to be more aggressive. So that's really what distinguishes the malignant from the classical narcissist. They show less regards for the rights of others. They may have antisocial personality traits, which kind of is that crossover into possible psychopathy or sociopathy, which again are not clinical terms, but antisocial personality disorder is really the, it's that what we know as the part of the cluster B personality disorders. But again, there can be a lot of overlap with some of these traits. So they might have this that can cause them to abuse others willingly and sometimes happily for their own pleasure and personal gain. There is not a clear distinguishing line between narcissism and malignant narcissism. Instead, malignant narcissism is a judgment about how a person's narcissism affects others. So basically, what it's saying here, to summarize, is that there are all kinds of narcissists, and I'll get to more, but what distinguishes a malignant person is that they're even more harmful. They can break the law, they can hurt you, they can do a lot of things that are extremely dangerous. They're the person that you could be in physical danger around. There are other narcissists that you're in emotional danger, but they're the one, they kind of cross that line because their aggression or what they want can take precedence over how they might appear. Some narcissists care so much how they look to people or appear that they won't put themselves in a position to look bad. But a malignant narcissist can get so out of control, or they can get so full of rage that kind of can go away in the moment, and they can become really scary and really unpredictable and really hard. So those are the ones you really need to watch and get away from. I'm not saying they're all dangerous in their own way, but those are the ones where you literally could be in physical danger. So if you are in a position, find yourself in the unfortunate position to be dealing with someone like that, there is no other option but to get away as soon as you can. If you are married to one or living with one or in a relationship with one, particularly if you live with them, you really need an escape plan. This is where you need to know when you need to get out, and you need to have a way to get out and a safe place to go, and you do not tell them. Never tell them. Have a bag packed with all your, important stuff. So it gives some ideas here about also how to deal with them. So it basically says avoiding a person with malignant narcissism is a key self-protection strategy, which is basically what I said. Like, no contact, being away from them is really the best case scenario. No one can cure another person's mental health disorder, and those with narcissistic traits who refuse treatment can cause significant harm, as I mentioned earlier. However, sometimes a person must interact with someone with malignant narcissism, and so it gives a few strategies. Some of these I've mentioned in other videos, but basically documentation, that's huge. So particularly, it says people working, co-parenting, sharing any sort of legal relationship with someone with narcissism. They need to communicate in writing when possible, which is another thing I mentioned. And then the good thing about that is you can document. So you have it written, you save everything, the text, the emails, whatever, save it all. To the extent that it's safe and legally possible. This prevents the person with narcissism from making false claims and escalating abuse by, for example, trying to seek custody of children. So this is where if unfortunately you're in a position where you need to parent with this person, which I talked earlier about parallel parenting, document. Gray rock, which I mentioned also in another video, basically channeling a gray, boring rock. Being as uninteresting as possible. They want to reaction, even a negative. So if they don't get it, they do tend to lose interest. They will get supply somewhere else. They're not getting supply from you. Boundaries, establishing boundaries. Boundaries are super important. They'll violate them every chance they get. So you need to have at least internal guidelines and boundaries. It might be leaving the room if the person becomes abusive, or limited contact, spending limited time with them, and then understanding it. Obviously, the more you know, the more protected you can be, the more you can deal with it. So understanding it, how it works, and then it helps this is sort of what I'm trying to do on this channel. Also reading articles, books, watching other YouTube people. There's lots of great ones out there. And just arming yourself with knowledge. The only thing I would say that if you are going to read up about it, make sure the people are reputable, because unfortunately there are some people out there who don't have a background in mental health. And if they're very clear about that, and maybe they're just talking about their own experience, it's more of like a peer, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but just understand that that's where that's coming from. And it might be like, this is my experience with living with a narcissist. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want more like just regular information and education, then I have credentials. This is my niche. I have a background. I went to grad school. So anyone that you make sure that person is an actual mental health professional who has a background in this and understands what they're talking about. You just don't want to get conflicting information or faulty information. So that's one thing I would caution you about, because there are people that sometimes talk about this stuff and they may not be the best source. So just putting that out there. And then basically it's about how to seek help. So, legal help, obviously, if it has anything to do with, obviously, if there's any criminal activity, like the person has assaulted you, or there's any fears around that, obviously that kind of legal help. And then, of course, also family lawyer. So if you're dealing with any custody issues or anything where you have, whether it's children involved or anything financial, which again, I mentioned in other videos, which you can watch those as well, you need legal help. Don't do this alone. Mental health support. So find yourself a really good therapist who understands this dynamic, and also peer support. So talking with others who have survived this, and so that you can often feel less alone. So there are groups out there. Sometimes you'd be surprised. Like, this is unfortunately more common than you would imagine. So a lot of times you could talk to a close friend about this and find out, oh yeah, actually I went through something like this, or I know, so don't be afraid to talk about it with obviously people you feel safe with, and reach out, find groups, find other people to talk to, as more of a support system, because then you don't feel so alone. The less isolated you feel and the less alone you feel, the easier it'll be to deal with all this, because you basically have your team. So I always say, never go alone, never try to do this alone. So just to sum it up, malignant narcissism, it's not a medical diagnosis, but it's a cluster of symptoms, and it's extremely harmful. Harmful behaviors and traits, even though they're not always technical diagnosis, they still affect the person and they still harm a lot of people. So just to understand what that is. And also, for the more you understand, the more that you can keep your distance from it, and also work on it and heal. So that's kind of where it's at. I'd like to just give some credit to, this was from Medical News Today, I believe I got this. It's just one of the places. I mean, there's so many great resources out there, but I just wanted to say that I took this from an actual site, but only for the purposes so I wouldn't forget anything. Like, this is all stuff that I have the knowledge base around, but just sometimes it's easier to just get some bullet points so I can be very clear about what I'm covering. So that kind of is it in a nutshell, malignant narcissism. And I will be covering more types of narcissists, but that's it for today. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithms. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And until next time, bye for now.